Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. It was just another quiet evening in our home, the kind where routine hangs in the air like a familiar perfume. My husband, Alex, had just turned 45. I'm 30, and we've been married for almost 7 years now. Life between us was good, stable, friendly, sometimes even predictable. But that night shattered everything I thought I knew about him. What he did in bed, it left me wild, breathless, and questioning everything. We weren't the kind of couple that made headlines. Our love had always been calm, like a peaceful river, steady and kind. We cooked together, laughed over silly jokes, and fell asleep holding hands. But there was a distance growing between us lately. Something unspoken, a tension I couldn't quite name. And then came that night, when I realized he had been keeping something from me. Something that didn't just change the way I saw him, it changed the way I saw us. Alex had always been thoughtful, a quiet kind of passionate. Not the man to make grand gestures, but the one who always knew how I liked my coffee or which sweater I'd forgotten on the couch. But that night, something in his eyes was different. There was intensity, hunger, and something else I hadn't seen in years, mystery. When he reached for me, there was a tenderness, yes, but also an unfamiliar edge to his touch. It wasn't just love. It was a message, one that whispered, "You don't know everything about me." I had gone to bed expecting the usual, a quick kiss goodnight, maybe a few minutes of scrolling on our phones side by side, drifting off into another ordinary sleep. But Alex had other plans. The look in his eyes said it all. He wasn't just my husband that night. He was a man with a story to tell. And he was going to tell it not with words, but with actions that left me stunned. As his hands moved, his words followed, soft and deliberate. He said things he'd never said before. Told me about feelings he had buried deep, things he'd wanted but never dared ask for. There was a part of him I had never met, a part that had been waiting, silently, for the right moment to surface. And the way he made me feel, it wasn't just passion. It was connection, rediscovery, and something far more powerful than lust. It was love, reawakened and raw. But just when I thought I was starting to understand what was really happening, he stopped. Just like that. No explanation. Just a look and a whisper, "We'll talk tomorrow." And then he turned away, leaving me in the dark, stunned, wide-eyed, heart racing. The silence in the room felt heavier than ever after he turned away. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together what had just happened. My heart was still pounding, my skin still tingling from his touch, but my mind was racing in another direction. Who was this man lying next to me? For years, I thought I knew him better than anyone else. But tonight, Alex had shown me a side of himself that was completely unfamiliar, deeper, more intense, and wrapped in something I couldn't quite understand. The next morning, the house felt colder. He moved around the kitchen like everything was normal, coffee brewing, eggs sizzling, but there was something in his eyes that gave him away. A weight, a secret. I watched him closely as he spoke about his plans for the day, but not once did he mention what happened the night before. Not a word. As if he was trying to erase it or pretend it had never happened. But I couldn't forget. I didn't want to. Whatever it was, it had changed something between us. That whole day, I kept replaying his words in my head, the way he whispered things he'd never dared say before. Not just the words, but the feeling behind them. Like he was opening a door he had kept shut for years. Maybe even before I met him. There was pain there, mixed with desire. And love, too, but a kind that felt different from what we were used to. It felt like a hidden truth, coming up for air. I tried to act normal too, but inside I was restless. I wanted to ask him, what had gotten into him? Why now? Was this a moment of passion, or was it something deeper, something that had been building up? The space between us that night didn't feel like distance anymore. It felt like a doorway. But to what? Later that evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie neither of us really paid attention to, I noticed him looking at me out of the corner of his eye. Like he wanted to say something, but didn't know how. Or maybe he was afraid of how I'd react. That tension, that quiet, growing space between the known and the unknown wrapped around us again. And I knew, whatever he was holding back, it wasn't just about last night. There's something Alex hasn't told me. And I'm starting to wonder, am I ready to hear it? The days that followed were filled with unspoken tension. On the surface, things seemed normal, meals shared, chores done, smiles exchanged. But underneath, something had shifted. I could feel it in the quiet moments, in the way Alex would look at me like he wanted to say something but stopped himself. I felt it in the way he touched me gentler, more cautious, as if he wasn't sure what I was thinking or feeling. And truthfully, I wasn't sure either. I started noticing little things. Alex had started spending more time in the garage alone, sometimes late into the night. When I asked, he'd say he was just fixing something or needed space to think. But I could feel the distance growing. It wasn't physical, it was emotional. Like he was building a wall, brick by brick, between us. But why? What was he hiding that he couldn't just say out loud? One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I followed him quietly when he went out to the garage. I just needed to see what he was doing. The door was slightly open, and I peeked through. What I saw wasn't what I expected. He wasn't fixing anything. He was just sitting there, staring at an old box. And in his hands was a photo. A woman I didn't recognize. He looked at her with the kind of sorrow you don't fake. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't about us, at least not entirely. This was about something from before. Back inside, I couldn't sleep. My mind was running wild. Who was she? An old lover? A lost friend? Was she the reason he had changed so suddenly in bed that night? Was he trying to prove something or forget something? The questions kept me up until dawn. But I didn't ask. Not yet. Part of me was scared of what the answer might be. Meanwhile, I started remembering moments in our past that didn't make sense before. Like the way he avoided certain songs, certain places, or how he sometimes looked at me like I reminded him of someone else. It was all starting to connect, piece by piece. And though I wanted to be angry, I couldn't be. Because I knew whatever it was, it had hurt him deeply. I found myself torn between two feelings, confusion and compassion. I wanted to understand him, to help him heal. But I also wanted to protect our relationship. Whatever truth was waiting behind his silence, I knew it had the power to change everything. Viewers, what do you think Alex is hiding? Could it be a lost love, a secret past, or something he's never told anyone before? Drop your thoughts in the comments and tell me, should she confront him now or wait for him to open up on his own? The next evening, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I had gone through his drawer when he was out walking the dog, my heart pounding with guilt, but also desperate for answers. Inside, tucked under a few old receipts, was that same photograph I had seen him holding in the garage. A woman, smiling in the sun, standing beside a little boy, both unfamiliar to me. On the back, in faded ink, were the words, "For when you need to remember who you were." That one sentence broke something open inside me. Who was she? Who was the child? I had never known Alex to have any children, and he never spoke of any past relationship this deep. The photo didn't look ancient either. Maybe 7 or 8 years old. My stomach twisted with the possibilities. Was this a family he once had? Was he hiding a part of his past that still lived inside him every day we were together? When he came back, I didn't mention the photo. I just watched him move around the kitchen again, quiet, controlled, like he was managing his thoughts too carefully. And I realized this version of Alex, the man I thought I knew, was only half the story. That night in bed, when he reached for me with such urgency and depth, he hadn't just been loving me. He had been reaching for something else. Maybe even trying to hold on to someone he lost. As we lay beside each other in bed, his breathing calm and steady, I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling again. The distance between us had grown quieter, but deeper, like a secret we were both pretending not to notice. Then, just before sleep took him, he whispered, "I need to tell you something. But I don't know if you'll still look at me the same after." I turned toward him, my heart racing. "Try me," I said softly, but he had already closed his eyes. Now everything hangs in the air, his secrets, my questions, and that photograph with a past I never knew existed. What he's about to reveal could change everything between us. And I don't know if I'm ready to hear it, but I know I can't ignore it anymore. The next morning, I didn't wait for him to speak first. I placed the photograph on the kitchen table between us, silent and steady. His eyes dropped to it, and something in him broke open, just a flicker, like a crack in a wall that had held for too long. He sat down slowly, running his hand over the picture as if it hurt to touch. "She was someone I loved before you," he said, his voice low, almost shaking. "Her name was Mia. And the boy, his name was Eli. He was my son." The words hit me like cold water. I blinked, trying to process it all at once. My husband had a son. A life. A love. And he had kept it from me all these years. My chest tightened. "What happened?" I asked, barely above a whisper. "Mia and we were never married. It was complicated. When Eli was 5, they were in a car accident." He paused, closing his eyes. "I lost them both. And after that, I didn't know how to live. I shut down. I left everything behind, including pieces of myself." He looked at me then, and I saw it, all of it. The grief, the guilt, the part of him that had never truly healed. "When I met you, I didn't plan to fall in love. I thought I'd forgotten how. But you brought me back. You reminded me what it's like to feel again." The air felt thick with emotion, but somehow I understood. The night he reached for me in bed, that wasn't just desire. It was memory, pain, and a need to reconnect with something real. And even though I felt hurt, even betrayed, I couldn't ignore the truth in his eyes. We sat in silence for a long time. Then I reached across the table and took his hand. "You should have told me. But now that I know, I see you more clearly. And I'm not going anywhere." Just as I thought the moment had settled, he added quietly, "There's one more thing." He pulled a small envelope from his pocket. "I got this a week ago. It's from Mia's sister. She says Eli's not dead. She raised him. And he's asking about me." Everything stopped. Alex didn't say another word after handing me the envelope. I watched him, quietly, my heart caught between 1,000 feelings: shock, pain, curiosity, and something deeper. Hope. He had carried so much for so long, hiding it beneath every smile, every quiet moment we shared. And now, all of it was out in the open. The truth. His past. His son. We sat together on the couch later that day, reading the letter inside. It was written in careful handwriting. Eli was now 12. Mia's sister had taken him in, raising him with stories of his father, a man he believed was lost, but had always wondered about. Now Eli was old enough to start asking real questions. He wanted to meet Alex. And suddenly everything felt both fragile and full of possibility. "I don't know what kind of father I can be after all this time," Alex whispered. I looked at him and smiled, small but real. "Start by just being you. The man I fell in love with. The one who finally found the courage to tell the truth." In the days that followed, we prepared to meet Eli. We cleaned the guest room, bought books kids his age might like, and talked more than we ever had before. Each conversation brought us closer to the kind of connection we once lost, and now we're slowly rebuilding. Alex wasn't just opening up to Eli. He was reopening his heart to life, to love, to all the things he thought he'd never deserve again. And me? I had to face my own fears, too. Fears of the past, of not being enough, of not fitting into this new picture. But when I saw how Alex looked at me grateful, present, I knew this wasn't the end of us. It was a new beginning. A different kind of love story. One that included more than just romance. It included healing, forgiveness, and family. The day we met Eli, he walked in shy, curious, but not afraid. And when he looked up at Alex, it wasn't anger in his eyes. It was wonder. Maybe even recognition. And just like that, the silence between past and present faded away. Viewers, how did this story make you feel? Should we follow their journey further and show what happens next? Let me know in the comments. If you believe love can survive secrets and still grow stronger, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more human stories like this.